What happens if a buyer's financing falls through after you accept an offer? If you are selling a home and your buyer is getting a mortgage, there's one question every seller quietly worries about. What happens if the buyer's loan falls apart? Because here's the truth most sellers don't realize. Even after you accept an offer, even after you've gone through inspections, even after the appraisal, a deal can still fall apart because of financing. And when that happens, it can cost you time, it can cost you money, it can cost you leverage, and sometimes it can cost you your next buyer. Hi, I'm David Hittle, doing business as Shop Kentucky Homes LLC, a real estate specialist with United Real Estate Louisville. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through why buyer financing fails, when it usually happens, what your options are as a seller, and whether you get to keep the earnest money deposit, and finally, how to protect yourself from this happening in the first place. Specifically for sellers here in the Louisville area market. So why buyer financing fails? Let's start with why. Why this happens in the first place. Most buyers are not paying cash. They are using a mortgage. And that mortgage approval is based on their income, their credit, their debt, their job, and the property itself. So even if they were pre-approved, things can still go wrong. The most common reasons I see financing fall through are the buyer loses or changes their job. Their credit score drops during the process. They take on new debt like a car or furniture. The lender discovers income that can't be verified. The appraisal comes in low and the numbers just don't work. Or the loan program itself gets denied. And sometimes everything looks fine until the final underwriting review near the end of the process. That's the part that surprises most sellers. So when financing usually falls apart? Well, in most transactions, financing issues happen in one of three stages. Either early on, within the first week or two when the lender first reviews the file, in the middle, around the appraisal and underwriting phase, or late in the process, sometimes just days before closing during final loan approval. The later it happens, the more painful it is for the seller, because by that point, your home has been off the market, other buyers may have moved on, your timeline is now disrupted, and your leverage may be weaker. And this is why understanding your contract matters so much. So what does the contract say about financing? Well, in most Louisville area contracts, buyers include a financing contingency. That means the buyer's obligation to purchase the home depends on their ability to obtain a loan. If the buyer cannot get financing within the agreed time frame, they usually have the right to cancel the contract. And in most cases, they get their earnest money back, and this part surprises a lot of sellers. If the buyer acts in good faith and truly could not get approved, you typically do not automatically keep the earnest money unless the buyer missed deadlines, unless they failed to apply properly, or unless they violated the contract terms. Then, of course, it becomes a different legal situation. What happens to you as the seller? So what happens on your side when financing falls through? Well, first, the contract is terminated. Then, your home goes back on the market. And this is where the real impact happens. Because now, your days on market increase. Buyers may wonder what went wrong. you may lose your momentum, and sometimes you lose negotiating power. And in some cases, the next buyer may even try to use that failed deal against you. That's why how you handle this moment matters a lot. Can you go after the earnest money? This is one of the most common questions I get. Do I get to keep the earnest money if the buyer's loan falls apart? And the honest answer is sometimes yes, most of the time no. If the buyer properly proceeded through the process and was denied legitimately within the contingency period, the earnest money is usually refunded back to them. However, if the buyer failed to cooperate, they missed deadlines, or they caused the denial by their own actions, then you may have grounds to claim the earnest money. But that, again, becomes a negotiation, or a mediation, or an arbitration, or in real cases, a legal dispute. This is why documentation and timing matter so much. So what are your options after financing fails? Well, once the contract is terminated, you typically have several options. Option 1, you go back active on the market immediately. Option 2, reach out to the backup offers if you had any. Option 3, renegotiate with the same buyer if there's a way to fix the loan, such as maybe a different loan program, maybe a cosigner, maybe a price adjustment, or maybe additional down payment. Sometimes deals can be saved. But most often, the cleanest move is simply moving on to the next buyer. So how do you protect yourself as a seller? Well, this may be the most important part of this entire video. There are ways to dramatically reduce the risk of this happening. First, we look closely at the buyer's pre-approval because not all pre-approvals are the same. A strong pre-approval comes from a reputable local lender that is fully reviewing the income and credit and not just an online pre-qualification. Second, we shorten the finance contingency period when possible. The sooner the buyer has to secure loan approval, the sooner you reduce your risk. Third, we consider backup offers because backup offers are incredibly powerful. If your primary buyer falls apart, you may already have another buyer lined up without having to restart from scratch. And fourth, work with a real estate agent who actively communicates with the lender during the process. This is something I personally do on every transaction because early warning signs can often prevent late surprises. My final thoughts here are these. Financing issues are one of the most common reasons that real estate deals fall apart. But they don't have to derail your entire sale. When you understand how financing contingencies work, what your contract allows, and how to protect yourself up front, you put yourself in a much stronger position as a seller. And that's exactly what smart selling looks like. If you're thinking about selling your home in the Louisville area and you want to understand how to protect yourself through the contract process, through the inspections, through the appraisal, and through buyer financing, I would be happy to help. I am David Hittle, your real estate specialist, doing business as Shop Kentucky Homes LLC with United Real Estate Louisville. You can reach me at 502-489-1135 or visit me online anytime at shopkentuckyhomes.com. And if you found this video helpful, I hope you did, please make sure to hit the like button. Please subscribe and please follow along my channel. I post Louisville area real estate videos every other day to help homeowners and home buyers make smarter decisions.